What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name's Matt. Very excited today. I just got off the phone with Clint from CNC Equipment, and he's on the way out the road here, and he's bringing me a really cool new toy to play with. Now, since I've started the whole shop building series here, which you can see we're walking around in the shop right now, since I started this series, people have been asking me how I'm planning on heating this big building here, and the answer is very simple. I installed radiant floor heat in the slab before we poured it, so that's all these tubes coming up are separate zones, and we're going to run hot water through that, which will keep the slab nice and hot, and that radiant heat from the slab will keep the whole building nice and toasty. But how do we get the hot water? Well, there's a few different ways you could do it. You could do a natural gas or a propane boiler system with circulating pumps, or you could do an electric boiler with circulating pumps. Both of those options are pretty expensive to operate, I think, especially the initial getting the slab up to temperature. Once the slab's up to temperature, it's not too bad because the slab is such a big heat sink, but very costly in comparison to doing something like I'm going to do, which is use the natural resources that I have on the property here, and that's a wood boiler. So rather than having a wood stove in here just making hot air and dust and soot and everything else in the building, we're going to keep the wood fire safely outside where it can't burn down the shop, one, and two, it does a more efficient job. So I actually purchased a central boiler, Classic Edge 760, and that'll be a whole separate video of its own. But those wood boilers, they do go through a fair amount of wood to heat up a building this size, plus eventually my house. So rather than picking up each log, I've talked Clint at CNC Equipment into hooking me up with a toy that should save me a lot of back work. You guys have already clicked on the video title. You know it's coming. I got an awesome Firewood processor coming for this thing, and the skid steer is presently due for a service, and I know once I get this processor, I'm gonna probably wanna jump on it and run it for a long time. So let's get this thing serviced up and ready to go back to work. I really need to replace the shocks that assist lifting this cab. It is so stinking heavy. All right, I got the cab up the rest of the way, got the oil filter located and ordered a new one. Also called in the fuel filter. Now we, while the engine's still hot, I'm gonna climb underneath here and drain this thing out. A little bit of dirt in here. Alright, if you never saw the first video of when I got this machine, these Takeuchis have a fancy pants quick oil drain. Well, it's quick if you have this tube. If not, you gotta do it old school way. But basically this thing just threads onto the side of the oil pan, and when at the same time you're threading it on there, you're also opening the valve that lets the oil drain out. will say that a tool-free oil change, aside from the belly pan bolts, is nice. Good concept they got going here. Especially it's pretty mess free as well. You guys see the oil coming out the end there. But all of this convenience down here underneath the machine is negated by the fact that they put the oil filter underneath the cab. So you have to lift the cab to change the oil filter. That is stupid. Alright. Old filter off as we make a mess. Got the pig mess to try to stop as much of that as I can. Very poor engineering. What a stupid place. That sucker is heavy. So there's the oil that came out of it. As you can see, pretty darn black. Now this machine is hands down my most frequently used machine, and the one machine that I absolutely could not live without is a skid steer or compact track loader, whatever you want to call the thing. But that by far I use this more than any other machine. So I always make sure I treat it to the best stuff. So that means we get some Rotella T5 off the shelf here, and we'll fill this thing up again. I believe that's what I put in it the last time as well. So I probably could have pushed out my oil change interval a little bit, since this is the semi-synthetic blend. This has got better additives and stuff in it than just your regular T4, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I'm going to go ahead and do the services as usual anyways. It's not that big of a deal. You're better off to spend money changing oil more often than pulling engines and rebuilding them more often. Well, we're on the stick now. All right, we're just a little bit over full. Should be able to fire this thing up and be about the right level once we fill up our oil filter. Go ahead and give her a new fuel filter right now too. One thing that I don't like about this fuel filter setup is that there's no bleeder screw on here. This looks like a bleeder screw, but it's not. It's like some goofy cast nipple thing that threads in there. If you loosen that, it will turn both hoses. So anyway, I just kicked on the electronic fuel pump just by turning the key on, and when it changes tones, I should know that that filter's full. All right, fuel pump is playing a different tune now, so I'm pretty sure it's ready to go. All right, we got the system bled. I'm gonna double check the oil here. Right on the money, baby. I've also taken this opportunity, I blew out the air filter. I'm gonna hit the radiator here before we go to work. Wait, I can't see the connector. There we go. There we go. Bam. All right, so Clint from CNC Equipment come down and brought me this awesome firewood processor. This is a Halverston. Am I saying it right?
Yep.
Halverston 120, correct?
150.
150. It's the big boy.
Yeah, it's
there we
the
go.
biggest one they make.
There's the sticker. So I have seen these things in videos and thought, man, that would be such a time saver. And then I was talking to Clint up at Con Expo when we were out in Vegas, and he said, oh, I sell those things. And I said, no kidding. And now here we are. So anyway, we got to do a little bit of connecting here since this thing is brand new. I think it looks like we got some hoses to connect, probably some electronic doodads to figure out and connect to the old Takeuchi here. So yeah, let's get this thing hooked up and go buck up some logs. Those are some honky-tonkin' hydraulic lines. So let's figure these guys out here. All right, we got all these hydraulic lines hooked up. We got the electrical connectors sorted out. This machine only has, what, 6 connections normally? We had to steal the horn button to make one of the functions work. Every machine's set up differently, so a little bit of trial and error and chasing wires. Let's see if it's gonna work though. Light come on in the socket, so something's happening. All right, so disclaimer, I have never run one of these and not even watched that many videos of people running them, so it's gonna be a learning experience. I'm gonna look like an idiot for a little while at least. Alright, here we are a couple of weeks later. I want to give this splitter another go. It was pretty much the worst conditions imaginable the last time we were trying this thing. Today we're in the polar opposite. The last time you guys saw this a second ago, we were in a mud hole. Today we've got like moon dust going on. It's so dry here. We haven't had rain in like a week or two, so it's pretty dry. So the first thing I immediately noticed with the splitter here is that it's kind of not a trick to run. It's not hard at all, but it is a sequence, and you have to get the sequence right. Otherwise, you look like an idiot, like I did in the last clip there. So it's definitely going to take some getting used to, getting the controls committed to memory to where you can do it without thinking about it. The other thing is that I should have cut these logs differently. If I would have known that I was getting this processor to use, I definitely would have cut these into like 8-foot lengths, I think. I should do the math on the opening there and cut them so that there's an even number of pieces come out of each one. Anyways, I'm going to take the chainsaw and just rip a bunch of these in half. I think that'll make them a lot easier to handle. Some of these ones that are like kind of split and broken that I broke apart with a thumb, the processor's not going to like those, so we'll just kind of throw those off to the side, I think. But most of them I think will run through the processor just fine once I get the hang of this thing. So I think Clint was trying to explain this to me when he was here, but I think the trick is to leave yourself a little bit of cushion. Don't open up, don't cut it off as wide as the chute. You want to cut it off a little bit smaller. That way it drops straight down and doesn't kind of wedge itself.
So yeah, that was awesome. I mean, I'm starting to get the hang of this thing now. You can definitely crank out the wood. Like I said, if I cut the logs into the right length from the get-go, I wouldn't have these like weird shaped remainders, you know, small pieces or whatever left over at the end. But even with the small pieces left at the end, I'm sure there's a trick that I'm gonna figure out here to keep from having that, what just happened there, happen again. Alrighty, well that was a pretty solid start there. I'm definitely getting the hang of it now. I've kind of got things better figured out. So adjusting the split head adjusted right where you need it is definitely a contributing factor to things going smoothly. I had one log get bound up in there because, I mean, let's face it, splitting, what, 5 ways? Splitting the log 5 ways there is a serious undertaking. And then I had one of the logs get stuck because it had some knots in it, and you know, let's face it, that's a lot of pressure required to split 5 ways through knots. So I was able to just keep backing up and hitting it and hitting it and hitting it, and eventually it did go through, but it did take some doing. Also, wearing the paint off of everything, believe it or not, shining up all these cutting edges, that helps. So things seem to be going smoother now. Proper setup to use a processor like this is, I think, where I would definitely have a big speed advantage if I had set this up better, like I discussed earlier. And I mean, these are all like tree tops and stuff too. There's some nice straight stuff in there, but most of the straight stuff I save because I have a sawmill. So I mean, if you were going to process this pile right here, I'm tempted to waste one of these logs just to see what happens. Like, there's a maple in there that's not real great. I'm tempted to use one of those just to see how nice it could fly through something like that. If all of your logs looked like this, man, you could pound out some cordwood in a heck of a hurry like that. I got this pile over here done, I don't know, maybe I got an hour and a half in this. And I tell you what, if you split that much by hand, you'd have a heck of a lot more than an hour and a half in it, I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, boys. Look at that. Barely even put a dent in this pile over here. Yet we've got a 6-foot tall, probably 15, 18 foot around pile of split cordwood over here. As I said earlier in the video, just setting yourself up properly to use this thing greatly expedites its use and the ease of use. And I'm still picking up some tricks there. That very last log that I had to get out of the machine and flip over by hand, I think I just figured out how to correct for that on the next one. But that's all this thing is just figuring out all the little tricks to make it easier so that you're not having to get out and do any hand work. But I've got it pretty well dialed now. I was getting into a pretty good rhythm there at the end. To get this pile, I think I maybe have 6 hours altogether since I started. When Clint was here, I spent maybe an hour on it and really only cut a couple logs. And then, yeah, the rest of it I've just been kind of figuring out here, as you've seen, since it's dried out enough to actually work. So as I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I bought one of those newfangled high efficiency outdoor wood boilers. And it's supposed to use half the wood, maybe even 60% less wood than a traditional outdoor wood boiler. And I've seen some pretty good reviews on it, so I'm pretty optimistic. That remains to be seen. But this guy, I'm hoping like a pile like this right here could almost get me through a winter just heating up my shop. My shop's pretty well insulated, and floor heat is pretty efficient. It takes a lot initially, like I said, to get the floor heated up, but once it's up to temperature, it doesn't take a lot to keep it up to temperature. So I'm actually hoping that I have like 2 to 3 years worth of wood in that pile right there. And more trees seem to fall every day, so not a big deal. And just start scouring the woods and cleaning things up. But man, I don't know. Clinton sent this processor up here just for me to demo. And I don't know if he planned it or not, but he's got me really wanting to buy the thing now. One definite downside to this unit, not the processor. I'm not really blaming the processor here. The processor is this size and shape out of necessity. The Takeuchi has some weird visibility compared to other machines. So with running this processor on this machine, you have kind of poor visibility out here at the head. But I know for a fact if you were running this on say a Caterpillar or a John Deere or several other different brands that are out there, I think you would have a lot better visibility of the business end here. I kind of have to crane my neck around a little bit to see it or lift it up higher because I can kind of see underneath the boom. On the Takeuchis, you just have these big cylinders. Well, first of all, the cylinders are mounted up really high on these machines. A lot of machines have them down here kind of. And you also have these big guards that are built out here, which also restricts visibility. And you have this big flat step across here, which is great for the Takeuchi getting in and out, and for grading dirt, none of that's an issue. But running something like this, it becomes a little bit of a hindrance. So overall, I am impressed. This thing is an absolute beast, and it can really tackle the firewood, as you guys have seen here. I have a 4-way splitter that Clint brought up too, and I didn't remember it until the end of this video. So I might try putting the 4-way on there and seeing if that makes any difference, because really for what I'm using this wood for, I don't need small pieces like you get with the 6-way. So I think the 4-way might be a better option for me. So if you guys haven't ever seen Clint's channel over at CNC Equipment there, be sure you're checking him out on YouTube. He's a great guy. He does a lot with buying and selling and refurbishing equipment. A little bit more modern than the stuff that I typically pick up, but great stuff nonetheless. So if you have a need for a firewood processor or anything else machinery related, definitely want to hit up Clint. So a big thanks to CNC Equipment for sending this thing up. And if you guys are interested in these processors at all, be sure reaching out to them. I'm sure they can hook you guys up with the perfect unit for your needs. This is the biggest model that they make, I believe Clint told me. And actually, for all the stuff that I'm messing with, aside from a couple big boys in there, he told me that I probably could have gotten away with a smaller unit. So definitely something to check into, but I am super happy with it nonetheless. Anyways, guys, as you can see, I've got quite a bit more splitting to do. So as always, if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up button down below. It really helps out the channel. It doesn't cost you guys a dime. If you're interested in helping support the channel in a little more direct way, head on over to dieselcreek.com. The link is down in the description. We've got new merchandise in the store right now. We've got some snazzy red, white, and blue patriotic t-shirts just in time for the 4th of July. So you're going to want to make sure you're looking good at the family picnic. Head on over to the store, pick yourself up some new swag in red, white, and blue, and you'll be helping support the channel and looking good in the process. That's dieselcreek.com. Link is down in the description. But that's all I got for today, guys. So as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Later.